Donkey Kong Country is the most beloved Super Nintendo game of all time, and I absolutely adore it. As a die-hard Mario fan, Donkey Kong Country always struck me as one of those wacky, weird, one-off games on the SNES, but could it have been more than that? But I guess the most important question is, does Donkey Kong Country hold up today? Well, let's find out and get this over with.
So Donkey Kong, you know Donkey Kong. Some of us love him, some of us are scared of him, but if one thing's for certain, he confuses all of us. Because, like, come on. This guy isn't a donkey, nor is he a Kong, whatever the heck that is.
This is false advertising!
The King of Kongs got to start way back in the arcades in 1981 with Nintendo's first hit and appropriately titled Donkey Kong. This was also the first appearance of Nintendo's mascot Mario, who was at the time simply referred to as Jumpman. Inspired by Universal's mega hit King Kong, Donkey Kong was a surefire success and really ramped up Nintendo's profits and was one of the discerning factors that kept them alive around the video game crash of 1983. It was around this time, however, that Nintendo started doing Donkey Kong sequels like Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, and Donkey Kong Jr. Math, all to cash in on the Donkey Kong brand. Unfortunately, these games weren't too good.
Well, no duh, when a game costs the price of a mortgage and controls like mud, how well do you think a game called Donkey Kong Jr. Math did? Decent? I have failed as a parent!
Donkey Kong Country was developed by the world-renowned and beloved video game company Rare and released by Nintendo in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES. Also, quick side tangent, why didn't Nintendo just outright buy Rare in the first place? Like, they've already made some of the best games on your system, you've worked with them hand in hand for almost every single Donkey Kong game, and they've released freaking Conker's Bad Fur Day, and yet you still decide to be cheap and have Microsoft of all companies buy them out. Now, because of this, we have games like GoldenEye and Conker on Xbox, which isn't a bad thing per se, but it just sucks the joy and magic from what made these games so fun on Nintendo, and it just...
Can you tell I'm passionate about British gaming companies?
What really made this game stand out for the time was its use of groundbreaking pre-rendered 3D graphics. Created and rendered using Silicon Graphics technology, making the game look almost 3D despite running on 16-bit hardware was nearly unheard of at the time. Around 2 years later in 1996, Silicon Graphics would team up with Nintendo once again to bring their next system, the N64, to life, and thank goodness they did, as I need even more of a reason to play 1080 snowboarding on a Thursday.
I promise I have my priorities straight.
Released on November 18, 1994 in the UK, November 21st in North America, November 24th in Europe, and November 26th over in Japan, Donkey Kong Country was both a critical and commercial success, selling over 9 million copies and becoming one of the best-selling games on the Super Nintendo. This is also a really interesting release because it's one of the only games that I've ever seen in my entire life that was released in the land of the tea and crumpets instead of Freedom Land, USA. The game was also re-released later on for Nintendo handheld systems like the Game Boy Color in November of 2000 and the Game Boy Advance in June of 2003, selling over 9 million copies in its lifetime. It was obvious that Donkey Kong Country did exceedingly well wherever it was released, and for good reason. I mean, come on, it won the Best Game of the Year at the Kids' Choice Awards in 1995.
That's right, the only awards show that truly matters.
Starting up the game, we see Cranky Kong spinning an old phonograph-looking device on the old Donkey Kong arcade rafters when all of a sudden the man of the hour appears.
Everybody give it up for Bono!
DK swings in with the boombox in hand, slings Cranky Kong off the rafters, or trees, I don't know, and he does a little bit of a dance. Obviously, Cranky Kong does the only viable thing he can in a situation like this. He throws a barrel of freaking TNT.
Cause that's just how you get things done. If there's no explosives, I ain't buying, yo.
From there, we cut to the opening title screen, Donkey Kong Country. Overall, I think this is a very smart and funny way to open up the game. It shows that while this game may have the same title as previous Donkey Kong entries, this game is anything but similar. It's funny, it's edgy, it's over the top, and it all makes sense with Nintendo's marketing strategy at the time. Play it loud. This was definitely done to combat Sega and their audience of teens and young adults who saw Nintendo as a machine for little kids. Thankfully, Nintendo hit their target just right and hit it hard, since this game performs so well with audiences and gamers. Jumping into the game itself, you get 3 options: single player, 2-player contest, and 2-player team.
As somebody who doesn't have friends to play the multiplayer mode with, I guess we're stuck with the single player option. I am literally sitting right here, but you know what? No, it's fine. I like getting ignored. Okay, good.
We start out in Congo Jungle, where DK bursts from his treehouse and where he apparently keeps balloons because, well, balloons are freaking sweet. I mean, how do you not look at something like this and think to yourself,
because that's worth starting a war over.
As you progress through the game, the level design starts to look absolutely amazing, and the controls are even better. Your whole goal is to run around and collect bananas, since the big bad guy of the game, King K. Rool, stole all of them, and that's not fun in the slightest. I should know, I used to work for Dole until somebody started eating our fruit, and we just don't know who could have done it! I think we found our culprit. As you run around the levels, you'll periodically see these golden letters usually floating up in the air, as letters do. These Kong letters, as I like to call them, act almost as a one-up mushroom like you'll see in the Mario games. If you grab all 4 within a level, you'll basically have an extra life for later levels down the road. You'll also be able to grab balloons in random areas, which also give you extra lives because
that's worth starting a war over.
Speaking of gameplay elements, let's talk about my favorite disappointment to his parents.
Hey!
Sorry, who I meant to say was this guy, Diddy Kong. As Donkey Kong Country became one of the first introductions in the Mario franchise, P. Diddy Kong really hit it home with some gamers of all ages and really cemented himself as a new staple in the series. One of the more interesting details about Diddy Kong, however, was that he was technically replacing a slightly more well-known character, Donkey Kong Jr. This would have been fine given the fact that Donkey Kong Jr. had a good amount of games on the NES and in the arcade, but they literally put this guy in Super Mario Kart and then removed him from the Donkey Kong series. Like, what?
Can you tell I feel a lot of injustice for Donkey Kong Jr. and the Super Nintendo community?
On top of all that, the enemies in this game are fairly, how do I say it, interesting? I mean, how much more straightforward can you get than, hi, my name Donkey Kong. I like to jump on ostrich, rat, alligator, and ride rhino because me want banana.
Yeah, something's telling me I don't think Peter's gonna like that very much.
The controls in Donkey Kong Country are honestly perfect for this style of game. I wouldn't say it does everything buttery smooth, but it gets the job done exactly how you need it and does so perfectly. It's for the most part very similar to your basic 2D Mario game, but with a few extra moves like higher jumps, rolls, and dashes. Either way, it's a very enjoyable experience, especially for someone who has nothing better to do than to play ATV Quad Kings for the Wii.
I'm a normal human being, I swear!
The one thing everyone talks about when Donkey Kong Country is brought up has to be the music, because wow, this soundtrack was absolutely beautiful. Donkey Kong Country's music was composed by the all-time great David Wise, who you may know from Super Smash Bros. Melee, Star Fox Adventures, and Captain Skyhawk, because there always has to be a third. David Wise worked at Rare during the production of Donkey Kong Country, and while he wasn't the only one to work on the soundtrack, it's most commonly attributed as some of his best work, and honestly, I'm all for it. Hats off to this guy for making such a beautiful piece of art.
Well, you see, hats off to everybody else. I take mine off too, but I'm gonna suffer from that hair loss treatment that Mario 3 gave me. Hopefully I don't go bald.
Donkey Kong Country didn't just shake up the jungle, it shook up the entire gaming industry. This game wasn't just a one-off hit. No, it became the blueprint for a ton of future platformers and really proved that you can make a beautiful cinematic console-defining game without having to wait for the next generation of hardware.
Basically, it did a Fast and Furious. It just kept adding sequels until we said, okay, we get it, you're a franchise, shut up.
Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest came out in 1995, and Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble followed after that, creating a whole dang trilogy of banana collecting excellence. And thankfully, Rare's magic didn't stop there. Without Donkey Kong Country, we wouldn't have had games like Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, or Donkey Kong 64, all games that leaned hard into Rare's now iconic blend of platforming and humor and occasionally horrifying character design. Without Donkey Kong Country, who knows where we'd be? Okay. The legacy of Donkey Kong Country is still going strong today. From speedrunning events like Games Done Quick to memes so cursed they've probably been banned in several countries, this game is, was, and forever will be beloved by billions. I'm looking at you, Funky Kong.
Thankfully, that's not all Donkey Kong Country gave us. No sirree, we still gotta look at the marketing of this game, specifically what we saw on the TV. Oh no. Oh yes. It can't be. Oh, it is.
The Donkey Kong Country TV show. What the heck is that? If you grew up in the 1990s, chances are you've heard of the show, and if not,
you are so welcome.
The Donkey Kong Country animated TV series was based on the Nintendo and Rare game of the same name. It was co-produced by Nelvana Media Lab Studio, LA for Season 1, and Hong Guang Animation for Season 2, with various broadcasting partners including Teletoon, France 2, and Canal+. The show debuted in France on September 4th, 1996 on a live-action CG hybrid block called, pardon my Ukrainian, but La Planète Arcade de Donkey Kong ran as a full series from August 5th, 1997 to July 7th, 2000. It was the first TV show to use motion capture as its primary animation technique, and unfortunately did so well that now we have abominations like this and this. Thankfully, Season 2, produced by the Taiwanese studio CGCG, switched to traditional keyframe animation with a much better improved visual graphic style. Overall, the show is a full-on nightmare fest, and for good reason.
Not only was this a real thing, but it ran for 2 whole seasons. It's things like this that make me want to scream at the top of my lungs, what were they thinking?
Overall, Donkey Kong Country is, was, and forever will be one of the greatest games of all time, and I'm still extremely happy to have it on my shelf, and I guarantee that I will for years and absolute years and decades and centuries and millenniums and however long this game stays alive to come.
I still have no idea why we call him Donkey, but I don't really care. He's earned it. Anyways, that's all we've got for you Retro Rewinders today. Stay safe, stay warm, stay watching, and stay retro. We'll catch you guys on the next level.